I believe we left off last time talking about this rubber stamp back here. There is another way that's a little more conducive to utilize, and that's the marquee tool. So instead of utilizing the rubber stamp tool, I feel like there's something else back there. I don't.
Turn your auto select.
Huh?
I see you turn your auto select.
Yeah. Something's back there still. At any rate,
I think you do that
It's
on
the
the
tree.
what's that?
It's the tree. When you're turning the grass off, you're seeing the face of that tree. That's what's going on.
Sure doesn't look like it to me.
No, you just mask that on the background. Like the original picture.
Oh.
Would you like it? Maybe not.
No. Maybe it is the tree. I don't know. At any rate, we can always utilize the marquee tool to grab a selection of this grass and Control C, Control V to duplicate that. And I'm just going to move it up a little bit. And so we probably want to get that auto select turned off and get back to that layer. So we can apply the same brightness contrast to this layer, but first we can scale it down, Control T, scaling it down, and duplicate it a couple of times. To make a bigger area that this thing will cover. Since it's smaller grass, we had to reduce the size of it. And we can just flatten or merge those layers together. And can add maybe a brightness contrast to that. And then utilize, oops, I don't want to do it on that. I want to do it on this layer. A layer mask, which then allows us to use the paint tool with a low opacity to blend this grass together. So those are the two ways that you can utilize that. And to clip this out, we can use our marquee tool here and fill that in with our paint tool. We're still on the layer mask, so that's why that worked. Control D deselects it, and we can continue to blend in the rest of it. So it looks like the tree is kind of sitting in the grass. So that's starting to look a little bit better than it was prior. And then we can add an additional kind of layer to that to hit some highlights. See how this is kind of yellow in through here, and so we can go in and change the color. I think we talked about this already, but something super yellow. With another layer, and maybe make it a screen. We'll see what that looks like. it's not really doing anything. Let's go back to normal here. Because I'm painting in black. That would not work. So let me Control Z that. Still have my new layer. For some reason my yellow didn't stick. Okay. That looks terrible. Reduce my brush size. Reduce my opacity. Just add in some highlights. And yeah, we're probably going to want to do either an overlay or a screen, something along those lines, to make that fit in. So the other thing that we I didn't really show you was I just opened up the base image, or the after image, and I dragged it down to the bottom, and it allows me to view both at the same time, so I can start to match stuff if I want to here. Okay, so back in here, we're just going to go ahead and kind of repeat the same process. I'm going to take a clipping mask of some of this, it's not a clipping mask, but I would like to call it one. And now we're going to scale this down. And duplicate it a few times. I'm just going to select all three of those. Duplicate all three layers to make that a little bigger there. And maybe one more time. And we can merge all those layers together. And I might actually just pull this down below my base image so that I don't have to do a lot of cropping out. Kind of like that. And of course we can apply some adjustment layers to that. Maybe desaturate it. A little bit. I'm having trouble seeing it. It probably looks really bad. Yeah, it does. So maybe it's more about lightening it up than just desaturating it. Okay, and we need a couple more trees back there, so I'm going to grab this little one, duplicate it, and scale him back. Go back to our grass here, and utilize a clipping mask to blend that tree. And if you don't have black and white in here, you can click this little button to get black and white back, and X toggles between them. Control T or Control Plus to move in, and start to blend that in. So it kind of looks like it's sitting in the grass. And I'm not exactly sure what he used for this texture back here, but we can probably just take a sample of one of these trees and kind of use that in the background. What do you guys think, TAs?
That's what I think.
That's what you did?
Kind of back right. Merge them down a little bit.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too. So let's duplicate.
Make them a little darker.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. Maybe instead of using a screen, I'll use the darken overlay on that hue and saturation. And probably want to move it behind this tree, so I'm just going to drag this particular one all the way down. And now we're duplicate it, scooch it over, duplicate it. I think I'm probably going to want to merge those layers together. Whoa, not all of them. Why isn't it letting me merge those layers together? What's that?
Sometimes I've had problems merging a bunch of layer adjustments.
Really?
But if they're all the same layer adjustments, so.
Yeah, it doesn't like it. So we can always put them in a new folder. And we can utilize and scale these, kind of utilizing the perspective. Or you can also utilize distort. I think I don't want this guy to be I gotta find him first. Delete. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that hue and overlay, and I'm gonna use a brightness contrast, I think, to reduce the brightness on that guy. And again, we can go back in with a new layer in here and paint some highlights in back there. Try utilizing like a screen of some sort. And then there's one more tree in the background, huh? So let's duplicate that guy and Control T. Scale him down a bit. I don't know, that looks fine to me at this point. So the other kind of cool thing is we can start to use layers over top of all of these layers to basically sharpen them up, and it's called high pass filter. So what we want to do is actually duplicate this entire group and then merge that group into one image, and under other in our filter we can utilize high pass, click OK, and then make it an overlay layer. And you can see that it adds a little bit of detail to the overall background. You can do that again with the image. You duplicate that entire group and merge it. Again, utilize the high pass filter, click OK. This detail radius, if you do it really strong, it's going to look really awkward. So I would just use a light radius, somewhere in the 5.9 area, and then overlay. And you can see kind of the difference that makes. It just sharpens the image up and it adds a little more detail in some of these areas. So you can see the difference between the two. Yes, Ryan? Good. Alright, so that kind of sums up the background and the foreground of the image, or the middle ground of the image. Let's talk about the people. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the girl, and the guy. And again, want to make sure that we don't get any errors, so I'm going to change my resolution and my 8-bit to 16-bit, and I'm just going to drag and drop that guy in there, and same with the girl. I'm going to move this into my image and collapse both of those, and this is the guy and this is the gal. So can scale them down to being kind of an appropriate size. And if we hover over our ruler, if you don't have your rulers on, you go to View and turn on rulers, or Control R. And I can drag out a, what are these things called? Detail? Guidelines? Thanks. And so basically, in any perspective, right, the head and eye level of everybody is pretty much the same. So we can utilize that principle, scaling down the people to being an appropriate size. Maybe the guy is a little bit taller. And while I have the Control-T transform on this guy, I'm going to go ahead and utilize the flip horizontal so that he looks like he's walking in instead of walking into the wall. Click OK. Nothing. So we can start out by not having her hover in the air. We can duplicate this layer, and with the Alt, and if we have Alt down and click the layer itself, maybe I'm crazy. Right? Oh, sorry, Control, not Alt. Control, we can select that layer completely, and we can fill it in with black. Control D to deselect. And now Control T, we can go ahead and distort this to actually get a realistic shadow. And we can zoom in, and we can use the warp tool to start to warp this thing maybe to the wall a little bit. And then move it to the back so that it is behind the person, and we can reduce the opacity on it a little bit to make it look like it's a shadow. do the same with the guy. You don't even have to use the marquee tool. Control T, distort, and warp. And again, move him below and reduce opacity. Now we can start to add some ambient shadow with a multiplier and the brush. So maybe there's a little more shadow down around their feet area, maybe up through the pants. I don't know, just do it till he starts to look. Hmm? Yeah, I like crisp shadows. And the other thing that we can do is we can start to apply blurs to either any of these layers here. And so if we wanted to soften the shadows a bit, I think I would use a blur. I don't know, is there a better way to do it, Ryan?
There's like 25 different ways to do it.
Yeah.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
So I don't really do it, so I'm just kind of guessing that a blur would work well.
You can also put a mask to the edges.
Yeah, let's try it that way. Okay. So we can create a clipping mask, right? And the light opacity on. Start to soften the edges a little bit. I don't know, that doesn't do a whole lot for me there. Hmm?
Your opacity's too low.
Could be. There's 10 different ways to do the same thing in any software.
You need more shadow on her foot. She still looks floaty.
Still looks floaty to you. We can put more shadow in. And if you don't like the people effect, right, the extra people effect, you can start to just utilize your ambient shadow and turn off those shadows. So it's really, there's a bunch of ways to make shadows, right? So you could do this as well, and that works too. Except I would probably start to move that below and maybe split, yeah, so that they're now underneath the person. We can just write shadows overall. Now we could apply a motion blur to these guys, but I think I don't want to actually do it to the original, so I'm going to duplicate in case I don't like it, and I don't, you know, once you make a layer adjustment instead of a layer mask, you change the layer and you can't go backwards.
Filters.
with filters. Yeah, you,
Images.
yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate the guy, and I'm gonna use my duplication to apply a blur filter. And you could use the Gaussian blur or the motion blur. If we utilize, what did I copy there? I think I copied the wrong thing. Or oh, it's too much. That's right. Here we go. So you don't need a lot, right? If I had this thing way up, that blur is pretty extreme. But this helps to show a little movement. Right? So if I click OK, it starts to express that that guy's moving. Let's try something else with the girl. Duplicate layer, click OK. And let's just say I want to just have her skirt and her legs in a blur. I can create a marquee and do a motion blur, and see it's just picking up the bottom of her skirt. Maybe that's even too high. Click OK. Control D. And now we can also I want to change that to motion blur so that I know that that one's the blur. You know, you can start to offset that motion blur a little bit too if you want. I don't know. It doesn't look all that great, but you get the idea of what you can do. So now he really looks like he's getting thrown forward a bit.
He's the Flash.
The Flash. Yeah. And then again, we can start to, whoops, duplicate this entire group and merge that and utilize our high pass filter with an overlay. To just add a little more detail.
Trying to make it better.
What's that?
Told them to make it better than
Yeah.
that. That guy is like really hauling ass.
Yeah, he is. He wants to get inside. It's cold out there. I'm kind of making these dramatic so that you can see the effect of them, and I'm not taking a lot of care in doing this, but as you do it, you may want to take more care.
Maybe not.
Or maybe not. And so we can go ahead and I'm going to put this, where'd it go? Foreground copy, put it in the top, and just call that high pass so that I know that that's what that layer is.
Tree. Well, I bet you'll move that tree that's on top of the grass to the foreground instead of the background. That's probably what that looks like.
Hmm.
Delay the edge.
Yeah, this tree here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could probably do that. Ooh, I found that tree right away. So we can also move that tree Ryan nicely pointed out. To the foreground so that it looks like it's not kind of behind the grass. And our high pass isn't working out that nice because it's now, we've changed it. So we can delete both of those and redo our high pass. Oop, I didn't want to merge that group. Great. Duplicate group and merge. High pass and overlay. I'm just going to drop that back into there, to there, and I'm just going to rename these high pass so that I remember what they are. Now we can copy all of them, merge those, and we could do another high pass over the entire image. I'm really curious to see what this looks like. And probably want to reduce brightness and contrast of it, maybe adjust the hue and saturation over the overall image. So these are affecting everything. It's a little gray, but if you only wanted to do it to a certain area, you could always use the marquee tool, right? And select a particular area. If we wanted to do the entire let's like bump that up to 50, get all of that. Select inverse, paint black, so that it's only affecting this area, or we could do it the other way around. Alright, go back to our marquee tool, select inverse, so now that hue and saturation is only affecting the background, it's not affecting the foreground of the image. Okay, so once you've completed the image to your satisfaction, I would do, if you haven't already, a save as a Photoshop PSD file and put that somewhere, and then do a save as and change this to a JPEG. And when you click save, it's going to basically ask you what's the quality that you want to save it as. Of course, the larger quality it is, the larger the file gets. But if you want to get a fairly high quality, just I'd go with the maximum. Click OK. So that'll probably take a second to do. And now that is what you're going to want to upload to Blackboard, that image. So do not upload the Photoshop file at all. Second image that I want you to upload, I'm going to go ahead and close out of all of these, and I'm going to extend this thing down, and I'm going to open up all these folders, and you might need to take 2 snapshots to get all of your layers, but I want to see all these layers and their layer masks, and the adjustments to the layers using layer masks and blending modes. So with Windows, you should be able to use what's called a snipping tool. It comes with Windows, so you just have to search for it if it's not in your quick select bar here, and grab that as an image, and you might have to do it twice to get all of your layers to appear, and upload all of those images at once to Blackboard. So don't upload one and then submit and then upload again and submit. Just upload all of them at once and then submit. Yes?
Do you want the after image and too?
No, no. I just didn't close out of it.
I was just wondering so we can figure it easier.
No,
Okay.
this is sufficient, just like this. And again, if you can't get all of your layers in on one page, do one one snip, and then do a second snip to get the rest of them in there.
Have you shown them how to disable a layer mask? Simply
Pretty sure.
Okay. I was gonna say,
But yeah,
instead
so
of
if you
deleting it,
select
just one
right click on the layer mask itself, you can disable that layer mask
so we don't delete it.
and enable it.
My other question is, so say the file folders get really complicated and I'm having trouble figuring out which one I'm in. Is there a way to make them easier to follow?
Yeah, you know how to do that, and I don't.
Right click on the folder and open the window. It should be I mean, double click on it.
Group properties,
Yeah, maybe that's it.
change the color.
And if you go to one that has 2 folders in it, now change the subfolder. So you can change the main folder and the subfolder.
Yeah, because it's just a folder. Doesn't matter.
The only reason for doing that is if you're moving things back and forth quickly, sometimes it's easy to get lost which folder you're in.
So that's a pretty useful tool. Did everybody get that? Okay. All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and talk about, so this assignment's due tonight, 11 o'clock. Definitely make sure that you get us an image with all your layers and your clipping masks and your adjustments, because that's really what we're grading on, not necessarily what the image looks like. It's more about utilizing those adjustment layers and clipping masks. And if you utilize actually adjusting the layer itself, we can't tell what you've done, and so it's hard to grade based upon that. So utilize this process, even though it's kind of gets cumbersome with all the different layers. So next week we're going to start into Illustrator, and that assignment is basically to utilize Illustrator and take one of your old presentations from second year probably, or if you're in second year, take one of your first presentations and relay it out. So over the weekend, I would suggest sifting back through your files and getting some stuff organized and put into a folder so that next week you're not scrambling to do that. I'm not providing anything for the next couple assignments, so it's all going to be up to you to create your images and your boards and your booklet, which will be the next assignment. So read over this, make sure that you have some vector graphics, some graphic drawings like floor plans, some images, a couple of renders that you did for another assignment in Studio. And so just review that and make sure that you have this information so that when we go to do the assignment next week, you're not scrambling to find this stuff. Okay? And just kind of looking ahead at the schedule, Illustrator is really next week, and then we have fall recess, and then we're going to work on InDesign for a week, and we're basically going to create a portfolio booklet. So I would also think about that. The requirements, so over break, maybe you want to think about what would I actually want to put in a portfolio if I was going to do that, and kind of combine all that work and put it into a folder somewhere so that it's easy to access and you're not scrambling that week to try to figure out what you want to put into your booklet. And then also I would recommend spending an hour or two over fall break and looking at Rhino a little bit more, and really getting comfortable using that software, because the final project will basically involve creating a lamp that has a very interesting bulb and it's on a tripod, so it's going to involve some modeling in Rhino to create it. You're going to create a scene around it, and you're going to render it, so you're going to have to apply materials to it, and then you're going to have to post-process Photoshop it, and then put it on a board. So these last 2 weeks will be fairly busy. We'll talk about Rhino again over probably 12:09 and 12:11, the first 15 minutes of class, we'll talk about some stuff that we haven't really talked about. And there's also video tutorials. The links that I posted on Blackboard talk about how to create the tongue bulb, which is what you'll be creating, and some of the detailed elements like the chains that kind of connect the tripod legs together. So you might find yourself wanting to look at those videos and get familiar with those. And then the last week of class, we actually will not be holding class that week. That's finals week. So we won't be holding class, but the project is due on the 18th at 11 p.m. And I myself will not be around. I'm actually taking off that Wednesday to go back to Pittsburgh for Christmas break. So just happens that that's the cheapest day for flying that I could get away with. So I'm taking off. I would imagine that Ryan will definitely be around. He might be a little irritable. Clay, I don't know if he'll be around at all. Probably not. So definitely come to class during 12:09 and 12:11. Ask as many questions as you possibly can if you're struggling. And we're wrapping up here. We got like 3 or 4 weeks left of school. So things are going to happen pretty fast. I think I'm just going to let the rest of the time be open lab today. Let's try to get through the Photoshop post-processing process, work on that. And that's all I got for you today.